Garwey Dual, starting point guard for Syracuse next year. Yeah, folks, Gerry McNamara is gambling.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. And on today's show, we are ranking the most important offseason additions for Syracuse basketball. This roster next year is going to be brand new. They only have two returning players from last year's rotation that will be playing for Syracuse next year. That is Sadiq White and Kiyan Anthony. In total, so far, keep in mind the Orange could add to this list still, but so far Gerry McNamara has added 9 players to Syracuse's roster next season, and we are ranking the importance level of each and every one of them. Who needs to be successful the most in order for Syracuse to be successful as a team? Number one, it's Garwey Dual, the 6'5" combo guard transfer from McNeese. He has to work, plain and simple. I should just end the podcast right here. Garwey Dual has to work, because if he doesn't work, this team is in big trouble. Let's talk about Garwey Dual for just a moment, okay? What is his role for next season? Garwey Dual projects to be Syracuse's starting point guard, playing 30-plus minutes a night. He's expected to play high-quality defense, take care of the basketball, and also, if he can, it would be nice if he could chip in scoring-wise as well. You also have to keep in mind what is behind Garwey Dual. Let's say, for example, Garwey Dual doesn't end up panning out for Syracuse, which, by the way, is on the table. If you look at his track record, the fact that he struggled in his first 2 years at high major programs, Seton Hall and Providence. He was a poor offensive player. Yes, he had a pretty nice year at McNeese last season, but there are certainly valid questions about Garwey Dual's offensive game. So if he doesn't work, if Gerry McNamara's starting point guard next year, Garwey Dual, doesn't pan out for Syracuse, what are they going to do at point guard? The answer right now, at least on paper, is true freshman Ryan Mesh, who, in my opinion, is not ready to see the floor for a significant amount of time next season. I'm not ruling out the possibility that he does play at times next year, especially in garbage time. But as an everyday player, as someone who's going to play every single game, I'm not buying it just yet. I'm not ruling out the kid's future. But right now, he is the only backup point guard to Garwey Dual. And sure, you can sit here and say, well, Jackson, they can move Aiden Tobiason maybe to point guard. He's played that position a little bit when he was at Temple. You could, maybe in a pinch. In a pinch. We're talking about Garwey Dual and him playing 30-plus minutes a night as the starting point guard. You need to fill those minutes at starting point guard. I don't buy Aiden Tobiason playing point guard for 30-plus minutes if Garwey Dual doesn't work. And if you do that, you sacrifice the depth that you have at the wing spots. So you need Garwey Dual to work. It kind of reminds me of a couple of years ago with Jaquan Carlos. And I'm not saying that Garwey Dual is on the level of Jaquan Carlos. I do think that Dual is going to end up being better than Carlos. So I'm not going to put that into your head, okay? What I mean by it is Jaquan Carlos a couple of years ago, he was the starting point guard for Syracuse basketball, and there was nothing really behind him. So if he didn't work, the Orange really didn't have any other option at point guard. They tried in times to put J.J. Starling at point guard, again, in a pinch, like they could do with Aiden Tobiason this season should Dual not work out. But J.J. Starling was best off the ball. So you still needed to play Jaquan Carlos even with nobody behind him, and he was a complete liability out there. Bringing it back to Garwey Dual, I'm not saying that he has to be an all ACC point guard next year. I think that expectation for him would be incredibly unfair. Maybe he can make the all-conference defensive team. That I will say. It's possible that he gets on there because he has shown to be a reliable defender over his 3-year college basketball career. But what I'm saying with Garwey Dual is he cannot be a liability on the floor. He just can't be a liability because there's no insurance policy behind him. That is why I am saying that Gerry McNamara is gambling with Garwey Dual as the starting point guard, because if you're going to have no insurance policy behind him, you better be sure that he's going to pan out, and I'm not sure he is going to pan out. I hope he does. I hope that he's able to play elite defense, chip in scoring here and there, and take care of the basketball. But his first 2 years show that he was a good defender. Maybe he took care of the ball at times, but overall he was a poor offensive player. And he can't shoot. I should add that as well. It also kind of reminds me, and it's a different position, but it kind of reminds me of William Kyle a little bit last year as well, when I called him the most important transfer that Syracuse added because he was going to be the starting center and he was a question mark. And if he didn't work out, then Akir Soare would have had to be the full-time center. And Akir Soare would not have been good enough to be a full-time center. That's for sure. And let William Kyle last year show you that if you want any optimism about this, about Garwey Dual, it's that sometimes these questions, these gambles, they could end up panning out. They could end up being successful. And so maybe that ends up being Garwey Dual. Maybe he does have a fine year for Syracuse next year, in which case they will have a shot to be pretty good. But what I am saying is, if there's anything you need to take away from this show is this. If Garwey Dual doesn't pan out, this team is screwed. Period. End of story. They have no depth at the point guard position. Maybe they can get in Aiden Tobiason in a pinch to fill in at point guard, but you still need to fill in those minutes. So if Garwey Dual is a liability out there, guess what? He still has to be out there on the court being the starting point guard because they have nothing behind him. Do you agree with me that Garwey Dual is the most important offseason addition for Syracuse basketball in determining their success for next season? Comment in the comment section below. Now, coming up here on Locked On Syracuse, these next two players we are about to discuss, they also have a pretty important role for the Orange. So we'll talk about it next on Locked On Syracuse. Your outdoor space should feel like you. It's one of those spots you keep meaning to fix up but never quite get around to. That's where Wayfair comes in. They make it easy to find pieces that match the vibe you wanted. I love how easy it is to filter by style and by budget so you can find exactly what fits your space. And they have everything all in one place: seating, decor, lighting, even outdoor rugs. And now the space actually feels put together, somewhere you want to sit, relax, and spend some quality time. Get prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Hey, Locked On Syracuse fans, you can get this show ad-free with the Everydayer Club. Plus, you can get early access to Locked On Syracuse episodes. You can join the Everydayer Club with the link in the description below. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse, we are ranking the most important offseason additions for Syracuse basketball from this past offseason. Garwey Dual led off the list because it's not about Garwey Dual necessarily being amazing, but if he doesn't end up working out, there's nobody really behind him to take his spot as the starting point guard for the Orange, playing 30-plus minutes a game. That's what makes him number one. Having said that, let's move on from Garwey Dual. These next two players we'll talk about, I believe, are tied at 2 and 3. They are interchangeable because they both have the identical role for this team. It is Gavin Doty and Aiden Tobiason. Gavin Doty is the 6'5" guard from Siena, and Tobiason is also a 6'5" guard. He comes from Temple. Both of these players are going to have a big role for the Orange next season. They are supposed to be two of the leading scorers for Syracuse next year. When you look at this roster from top to bottom, Gavin Doty and Aiden Tobiason I look at and say that they need to be two of the three leading scorers for the Orange next year, alongside Sadiq White. The only way you would say they don't need to be that is if Kiyan Anthony ends up being that and he breaks out for this team. The reason why I am putting them 2 and 3 and not 1 and 2 is precisely because of the wing depth that they do have. There is insurance on Gavin Doty and Aiden Tobiason. They may not be the greatest of options, but there are options that are behind those players. Kiyan Anthony is certainly someone that could break out next season. He's, in my opinion, the most important player on the team in general. I think he has to break out. You have Francis Falifac, who could slide into the 3 at times. There's also international signee Mark Morano Mahmutovic. We'll get to him in just a moment, but he's another wing player that Syracuse basketball can definitely use. So if one of Gavin Doty or Aiden Tobiason don't work out, there are options behind those players. That said, they have big roles. They are projected to be two of the leading scorers for this team next season. They have to work. They are very important for the Orange next year. Moving on to number 4 on the list, because Gavin Doty and Aiden Tobiason were 2 and 3. The fourth most important addition for Syracuse this offseason just so happens to be the first addition that they made. And that is Mark Morano Mahmutovic, the 6'7" wing from Slovenia. He's important for one reason and one reason only. We are told that he could be a really good shooter. That's what he's known for overseas. And right now, when you look at Syracuse's roster, one thing that they definitely lack is reliable outside shooting. And we have documented this before here on Locked on Syracuse. We have gone over each and every player's career three-point percentage on this show. Heading into next season, they don't have reliable outside shooting. It's not to say that they can't end up being a good three-point shooting team, because just because you're unreliable doesn't mean that you can't become reliable. It could happen. But the big wild card in this entire thing is Mark Morano Mahmutovic, because we are simply unsure how his game is going to translate to Division I ACC college basketball. We know he was a really good shooter overseas, but how is it going to work for Syracuse in the ACC? That's what makes Mark Morano Mahmutovic very, very important for Syracuse next year. That said, the reason why I'm not moving him up even higher on the list than 4 is that I don't think he's going to see the floor a whole lot, particularly earlier on in the season. With his shooting, he can definitely force his way onto the court, but Syracuse has 3 other wing players: Gavin Doty, Aiden Tobiason, Kiyan Anthony. So if Mark Morano Mahmutovic doesn't end up working out, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but it would be really nice if he does, because if he does, it means he can probably provide valuable three-point shooting that this team desperately, desperately needs. I don't think he is going to come in and be the greatest defender in the world, nor is he known for being the most athletic player in the world. But make no mistake, Mark Morano Mahmutovic is important because of what he can be for Syracuse next year, which is a reliable outside three-point shooter. So let's now move on to number 5 on this list. And don't worry, we are getting off the wing position players. This is a front court player, I should say, but you got Luke Wilson, the 6'9" center from Appalachian State. You could argue that because of Luke Wilson's role for next season, that he should be higher on this list. After all, I think that Luke Wilson is going to play at minimum 25, maybe even 30 minutes per game as the starting center for Syracuse basketball. And he is expected to be a high-quality defender. Last year, I get it's the Sun Belt, it's not the ACC, but he was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. He should be a good defender for Syracuse next year, even if he is not the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. It's also important that he can chip in a little bit offensively. I'm thinking maybe 7 to 10 points a game on average. That's it. Doesn't have to be 25 and 10. He doesn't have to be one of the best centers in all of college basketball, but he has to be serviceable on offense, and he has to be able to rebound as well along with his defense. But keep in mind with Luke Wilson that there are players behind him. There is depth at the center position. I'm not saying that these are the greatest options in the world. I don't think they are, but you do have Tasman Goodrick, who is the transfer from Siena, who last year in a limited amount of games because of injury, he averaged 10 points and 7 rebounds a game. And you also have the international signee, Abdurrahman Sebi. So those are two options that are behind Luke Wilson in case he does not end up panning out. But the way I look at it, that's a Freudian slip right there, but the way I look at it is Luke Wilson is the William Kyle replacement. He's replacing William Kyle. Unlike William Kyle, who had no real insurance behind him, Luke Wilson does. There are options behind Luke Wilson in case he doesn't work. There are not the greatest options in the world, I will admit that. But if Luke Wilson doesn't work out, I still think that Syracuse can have a successful season. What do you think? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Coming up here on Locked On Syracuse, we will round out the list of the most important offseason additions that Syracuse basketball has made. Stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, locations. You're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. With Indeed Sponsored Jobs, spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. You can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of your upcoming bills. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And hey, it tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. Overall, it just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Let's round out this list of the most important all-season additions for Syracuse basketball. Next up, coming in at number 6, you have Francis Falifac, the 6'7" forward from Siena. Falifac projects to be the primary backup at the 4 spot to Sadiq White. He can also play the 3 for Syracuse as well. Falifac for Syracuse next year, he needs to be a high-quality defender that can also chip in offensively off the bench. And it would be nice if he can also develop a 3-point shot. Last year, if you just look on the surface, or you look at just the surface numbers, you shot 38% from the 3-point line. That's really good. I can't take anything away from that percentage. But what I would say about it is that it's not enough of a sample. Francis Falifac last year took a total of 16 3-point attempts. Hopefully, Francis Falifac can develop that outside shot further to the point where he takes it more than 16 times in a total season and can still make around the same percentage. Because again, that would provides shooting for this team. And I do anticipate that in the future, especially if Francis Falifac sticks around with Syracuse, he's got 3 more years of eligibility, that he is going to play a more and more significant role for this team moving forward. I do like his potential upside for this team. But for right now, he's a backup to Sadiq White, who I said on Monday is going to break out. He is going to be a really good player. Being the backup to that is certainly important because Sadiq White is not going to play 40-plus minutes a night, but Francis Falifac is not going to be on the floor for any more than probably 20 to 25 minutes a night. And so with that, while Falifac is certainly valuable and I like his upside, he is number 6 on the list of most important offseason additions for Syracuse basketball. Next up, it's not really fair to the kid, but I have to put him here. It's Ryan Mesh. He's at number 7, 6-foot point guard out of high school. As of now, he is the primary backup to Garwey Dual. I don't think it's fair that that's his reality, but it is the reality. He is the second point guard that is on the roster. That said, I don't anticipate him playing all that much next season. Again, sure, it could happen in garbage time, like I mentioned earlier on in the show. But A, I think that Syracuse is going to add another point guard, even if it's not a great one, which would definitely limit his playing time. And B, if you recall last year, the only point guard that was behind Nate George was Luke Fennell. That was it. And Luke Fennell did not see the floor a whole lot, even though he came into the season as the projected backup point guard for this team. So while it would be nice if Ryan Mesh is truly ready to see the floor every single game, that may not be the case. Even if Garwey Dual doesn't end up panning out, I don't think that necessarily means all of a sudden more playing time for Ryan Mesh, because if Ryan Mesh isn't ready, he's not ready. They'll just have to play Garwey Dual, even if he's struggling, or in a pinch, like I said earlier, they could slide Aiden Tobiason for at least a little bit to the point guard position if he has to play 5 minutes a game there. Again, notice how I said Aiden Tobiason and not necessarily Ryan Mesh. But still, because he is the second point guard on the team, it would be beneficial if he was ready to play a lot next season. I just don't think that he will just yet. Not burying the kid and saying he doesn't have a bright future. I'm sure he can have a bright future. I just don't think it's going to be for next season. And then, capping off the list, it's another tie. 8 and 9, you have Tasman Goodrick and Abdraman CB. Goodrick is the 6'10" center from Siena. CB is the 6'11" center from Serbia. Both are centers that are projected to be behind Luke Wilson. And while there is no guarantee that Luke Wilson is going to end up panning out as the starting center for Syracuse basketball, the reason why I have him on the bottom of the list is because of the numbers. There's 2 of them. You're only asking one of them to be a backup center. A backup center. Not much more than that. It's really on Luke Wilson to pan out as the starting center for this team. It's not on Tasman Goodrick or Abdraman CB to be starting quality centers right away for this team. It's not on them. Plus, because of Syracuse's wing depth, you could do it in spurts. You could go small ball, and while I'm against it in most circumstances, you could move Sadiq White to the 5 for at least a few minutes a night if you absolutely need to. You absolutely need to. It is something that you could do because Syracuse has a number of wing players on the roster. But moral of the story with the center position for Syracuse basketball is that they have 3 centers. They need one of them to pan out as a starter. They need one of them to pan out as a backup. And so with those factors, Tasman Goodrick and Abdraman CB, sure, being a backup center is certainly important, but because of the numbers, they are the least important offseason additions that Syracuse basketball made this offseason. The overall list of most important to least important offseason additions. Number 1, Garwey Dual. 2 and 3 is a tie between Gavin Doty and Aiden Tobiason. 4 is Mark Morano Mahmutovic. 5 is Luke Wilson. 6 is Francis Falifac. 7 is Ryan Mesh. and 8 and 9 is Tasman Goodrick and Abdurrahman Sebi. Agree with me on this list, disagree with me on this list, comment in the comment section below. As far as what's coming up on this podcast in the near future, our next podcast will most likely come on Friday. We are going to discuss the potential breakout players for Syracuse basketball next year. Yes, Sadiq White is certainly going to be on that list of breakouts, but who else is going to join Sadiq White on the list of potential breakout players for Syracuse basketball? We will discuss all that and more on our next episode of Locked On Syracuse, which again will most likely be on Friday. Folks, if you tune into every Locked On Syracuse episode, perhaps the Everydayer Club is built just for you. You get this show ad-free, and you get early access to Locked On Syracuse episodes. You can join the Everydayer Club with the link in the description below. For now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.